This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. For anyone who's unfamiliar with us, we're a Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks Red Rivals podcast. We cover everything that's going on in the world of the Blackhawks and the Red Wings, as well as touch on the rest of the NHL and major news pieces that come out. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Tim Stompanato and David Barnhouse. Everybody, tonight's show is going to be a quick little recap of weeks 1 and 2 of the NHL season so far. I think we would all be shocked to say that if we looked at the games that we've had so far for both the Wings and the Hawks, this is what we'd be looking at. That being said, it's great as a fan just to have entertaining games to watch. Again, the offseason seemed like it took forever this year. Hockey's back in full swing in the regular season grind. We're about 2 weeks in now. So we're going to be going over what's going on in both of the clubs so far this season. Nick's not here tonight. He's at a party, basically watching the Bears game.
Bears, who are actually winning as of right now. So take that for what you will.
So hopefully for him, it's a good night. I mean, it's going to be a good night for me, at least, because I love talking hockey with you guys. Fellas, who going into this season would have predicted that Detroit and Chicago would have had the records they'd have right now?
Go ahead, David.
I mean, I didn't think we would be undefeated in regulation this far into the season.
Nice little caveat there.
Yes, we've lost 2 games in overtime, but we've actually been playing very, very well, and it's exciting.
I'm absolutely flummoxed. This team, we're supposed to be bad. I knew we wouldn't be Arizona State bad, but we're bad. And
it's the joke
wait,
never.
We're 4th in the Central. We're checks notes 3 wins, 2 losses out of 5 games. Are you kidding me? I can't wait to talk about this team. It's exciting. And I just it's always fun when one of those overtime losses to the Red Wings did come from the Chicago Blackhawks. Just throwing that out there. Not a big deal.
I don't remember that.
Okay. What happened?
I plead the fifth.
Jordan got to watch that game in real time, so he's the real winner out of this.
That crowd chant was straight up something out of movies. I shared a quick video on my Facebook. Somebody recorded the chants there. They were so awesome in person. That video does not do the chants justice.
I love that even though the divisions changed, we're not in the same division anymore. We don't play as many games each year. That rivalry is so ingrained and so rooted in a rich history of anger and passion. Those 2 teams play together and people are going nuts. You're going to hear those chants all night long.
It was so much fun. Someone posted a great Twitter post where it was like, hockey's more fun when Detroit and Chicago hate each other.
Yeah.
And there was the little scuffle, and the dude, I don't remember which player it was in Chicago, had a grip on Ben Chiarot's jersey and was punching Chiarot in the face.
Love that.
Chiarot just was nah, F this, and just went after him, and they had to break him up. This is great. This is fun.
I love it. I love when hockey gets chippy. I love when they play with a little bit of an edge, and those 2 teams bring it out in each other.
I just love the craziness with hockey, going off to different teams. The Milan Lucic clip from this weekend was the funniest thing I've ever freaking
Was that
seen.
The one where someone was trying to get off the ice and he just
they were trying to get on the ice. They were coming over the bench and he just checked him into the bench. I'm just that's hockey. I love it.
Also, Milan Lucic is a maniac.
Hockey's back, boys.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's go ahead and do this first.
I was gonna say, let's get into it. We've got some good stuff to talk about.
this is a Wings and a Hawks podcast. Let's just talk about that game because, gosh, that was such a good game, regardless of what team you root for.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I got real worried at one point when Larkin went off the ice holding his mid-region that he had surgery on over the summer.
Yeah, I was worried
after
about that.
After a really rough hit, and like the mic on the camera picked him like audibly groan, like, oh, and I'm like, oh no, no.
Yeah, I did see that happen, and I said, oh no, I really hope, like, because again, I love the rivalry, but I love the rivalry when it's at its best, and seeing your captain and your star go off, like, that doesn't bring me any joy. I want him to be like thriving, so when we win, it's like, yeah, we got you. Not, oh well, Larkin wasn't there. This feels empty. I will say, this game, just like some of the other Hawks games that we've seen, and we'll get into that with the flashback, but the Hawks notoriously given up 2 goals in the first. I almost turned the game off because it was like the second game in a row where this happened, where it's like, nope, and the Hawks get Pius Suter scored. Kubalik got an assist on that second one. And I'm just like, cool, it's a Hawk revenge game. I think I've heard everything I need to. And sure enough, it was literally a like back and forth of former players, because Andreas Athanasiou got that penalty shot goal, which totally changed the game. Like, Jordan being there, what did that penalty shot feel like? Was the crowd just like,
oh yeah, everyone was literally on their feet watching that shot. Like,
it's so rare to get a penalty shot in general.
And like the thing is, like, I saw people online roasting Alex Nedeljkovic for like not making like a save attempt move for that shot. But if you watch when Athanasiou took that penalty shot, the way he moved his legs and then the way he moved his upper body, Nedeljkovic was going to either make the completely correct play or the completely wrong play. And no matter which one you do, you're playing 50-50 if you choose it. So
yeah, I mean, at least Nedeljkovic didn't get Datsuked like Suzuki did earlier this week.
Oh yeah,
that was embarrassing. Oof. I love that he pulled that out. That is like classic Pavel Datsuk.
That's so good.
He's on my fantasy team.
But yeah, again, seeing, Pius Suter score, Andreas Athanasiou score, Dominic Kubalik score, it was almost comical, where it's like, okay, well, if any of y'all did that before, you might still be
on the 2 teams, yeah.
But like the energy in this game, and I know like I'm going to talk a lot about how energy is what defines the Hawks, that tenacity, that like give them a hell attitude that they've got, that chip on their shoulder, but like literally the way that they rallied and they didn't fold. I've seen this team when they're in a place where those 2 goals would have been it, and we would have lost 5-2. Would have just been completely deflated. This team rallied by grit and tenacity and just drive, has been able to rally back, and this Detroit game is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, to go off what you're saying, both of these teams this year have that just never say die attitude. And that's what I love. Like, the Wings haven't lost in regulation. We have fought back in some games and taken the win, like against the Devils and against others, and almost against the Kings, and we lost in overtime to them. But it's just been great. And Yzerman and Lalonde have added those players that really like have been contributing. Like, I think we talked last week on that combined podcast. At the time, I think out of our goals, 6 of them were contributed to by the new Red Wing players: Ali Mata, Andrew Cobb, Derek or Kubalik, like all those players. David Perrin, like, he's just going ham right now.
I like Perron. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing with like the Chicago club too, though, is like Max Domi, for example, had the game winner, free agency pickup, like Athanasiou, the empty netter or nothing, the penalty shot versus Seattle.
And then like Jack Johnson's been contributing, who was off-season ad, coming from Colorado after he won the cup. He's on like a league minimum contract basically, and he's chipping in offensively. Obviously love seeing Sam Lafferty. He is like every game the like hero. And again, he's been driving, him and Dickinson have been driving our power kill is what I'm calling it. Our penalty kill has been ridiculous this year. But this is what I talked about this on the podcast. Richardson said in preseason, we're going to be putting a lot of effort into the penalty kill. Everyone tries to like fall back and defend. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be knowing when to make plays and to push things and catch them off guard. We've got like 4 shorthanded goals, and a lot of that is attributed to Dickinson and Lafferty. And it's Connor Murphy scored a shorthanded goal in this Detroit game with Sam Lafferty as the assist. Like, what a great concept of turning the power, like the conventional penalty kill, on its head.
And like, that's something that the Detroit and the Chicago club have both kind of been sharing, is like a more aggressive penalty kill where instead of forming, you know, the diamond in front of your net and just hoping you're eventually going to block a passing lane and get a turnover, you just keep pressuring the puck carrier to the point where eventually somebody's going to make a bad pass.
And again, nobody's defensive stalwarts are on the ice for a power play. Like, that's the whole point. And so if you can catch somebody cheating even just a little bit, and watching some of these clips of the Hawks when they get right in there and they catch somebody off guard or disrupt a play in the neutral zone, that's it. It's off to the races. Jujhar Khaira scored a goal shorthanded goal the other day that same way. Disruption in the neutral zone. He took it. He booked it. Somebody was already there. Little give and go. There it is. You've got a goal, and nobody knows what they're doing at that point.
It's like the shorthanded goals from you guys have been fun to watch, and the game tying goal that sent us to overtime with Los Angeles was one of the most fun things I've seen.
That was
with
so good.
Dylan Larkin stopping a empty netter, and then 20 seconds later we set up and scored to go to overtime. Like, this is a fun start to the season.
Yeah, it's fun hockey. That's cool. We're not supposed to have that this year. That is gonna get into one of my points of are we too good? Like, we're not good. We're not playoff good by any means, but are we too good to Vancouver? Already an early playoff prediction that I made is being shot in the foot. They're 0-6.
That's
like,
and
Jordan,
they're blowing multi-game goal leads too.
Exactly. They're not close games. They're not looking good and just getting outplayed in like critical moments. Like, they're looking bad.
They'll have a big lead and then they blow it. They did that like how many times now?
I have Elias Pettersson in at least one of my leagues, and he's putting up like a goal and 2 assists or 2 goals a night, and they're still losing. And they're almost, which is going to sound weird, they're in a similar position to where the Hawks are in. They should have retooled around Pettersson, Demko, and Quinn Hughes. And that's where you figure out, like, okay, is Bo Horvat, how long will he be with the team? Brock Boser, what can we do with him? Signing JT Miller to that contract is tricky. Getting Oliver Ekman-Larsson with his contract was tricky. I think Tyler Myers is still on Vancouver, which that was like a $6 million contract. This might be the last year of it, but like, they didn't retool. And again, I was the first one to say this team looks good. I think they had a fluke season last year. I don't know this year. Maybe how long until it's not a fluke, until that's the reality?
Well, I'm trying to think, like, around what, like the middle of November usually is about when you can start like really putting the standings together. Because at that point, every club has played quote unquote bottom feeders. They've played other teams that are supposed to be playoff teams. So I think by the middle of November, early December, you kind of have an idea of how a club's going to look against different caliber teams. Like, you'll know whether you can just smoke the bottom feeders every time you play them and just pick up 3 points, or if you can actually compete with the cup contenders from the year before.
The Hawks currently have more points in less games played than at least 8 Western teams, and they are tied for 6 points with 3 other Western teams. This is insanity. And a lot of it is attributed to Richardson. I mean, they said, I remember there was a game, it was the game against Detroit where the overtime, the 3-on-3 started, and you didn't have Kane and Domi and Seth Jones out there. You had Lafferty and Dickinson. And one of the media, one of the reporters afterward asked Domi, like, hey, how do you feel about that? Like, usually for 3-on-3 to start overtime, you roll out like your top line. Like, what do you think? And Domi's response was, Luke's the guy, right? We know it. You know it by now. Lafferty and Dickinson were kicking it tonight. Like, yeah, they're out there. We trust him. And look what happened. Play happened. I got out there, scored a goal. This team trusts him. They will go through a wall. One of the Hawks players was saying just the other day, like, you guys weren't, talking to the reporters, like, you weren't able to be in the room last year. Oh, it's Tyler Johnson, where he's like, this is a totally different room. Guys are laughing. Guys are smiling. We are feeling good this year. That has to be, that comes from the top, right? Leadership and culture is defined by your leaders.
Yep.
Which again, Taze is buzzing. He's got goals. Like, he's driving play this year. He's looking good. But Luke Richardson has changed this room.
I think part of it might also kind of have to be with expectations, though, right? Because when you look at, like, not last year, but the year before, when the Hawks went into that season and everyone was like,
they're garbage.
This is going to be a complete garbage season for this team. They're going to be, probably a bottom 3 team. They still weren't a playoff team, but they hung in a lot more games than they were expected to. And I do think part of it is because the players aren't gripping the stick thinking, we're expected to make the playoffs. We need to make a playoff push this year. Are they playing to win? Yeah, of course they're playing to win. They're professional athletes trying to make millions of dollars a year, but that's not the only thing that they're thinking about. And it's not ridiculous outside pressure when they lose a game.
What's cool is they have that chip on their shoulder. They know what everyone has said about them. It's the question left and right about, like, Domi, how long do you expect to be here? Like, are you excited to play with Kane and raise your stock and get flipped? And he's like, that's kind of messed up to talk about. Like, yeah, I guess. Also, this is my life. Like, they all know. They all know that there's no they're supposed to be tanking, but players and coaches don't tank. And a team like this that has no expectations also has a chip on their shoulder. And like you said, Jordan, they're not gripping the stick. They're relaxed. There is nothing. What do they have to lose? And Luke Richardson said, I'm going to make Kyle's job really, really hard. And like, they knew that hiring him. I love it. I love the energy. Vancouver is the only team to not have won a game so far this year. And they've played 6 games. They are on a 6-game losing streak. At what point? We talked about this. We didn't record last week because we were in a live spaces with a couple other different podcasts, and then also Hockey DB and Tomorrow Hockey. Really, really cool opportunity to talk with people and get some different perspectives than we're used to. But we ended up talking a bit about what coaches are on the hot seat and talked about Vancouver a little bit. And guys, you got to wonder, this team this is a hot seat, right?
The Devils already fired their coach for less.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Vancouver should have a lot higher expectations than New Jersey did in my mind.
Like, I feel like if it gets to 10 losses in a row, that's at the point where management probably goes, yeah, this is...
You have to.
Oof, yeah.
Because it's not working.
For Vancouver, it's not a talent issue. That's the crazy thing is, like, if you looked at Vancouver on paper and looked at those players, you 100% think that team is on the bubble of the playoffs, if not in a wild card spot.
They had a good second half of the season last year.
Yeah, they rallied under Boudreau. Yeah, sorry. David, did Did New Jersey fire their coach?
Could have sworn they did, didn't they?
I don't know.
Hold on.
I missed it, but they're 3-2. They've got 6 points. If they
Hold
fired
on.
their coach and Vancouver hasn't, and shoot, if Minnesota hasn't, and again,
Hold on. I could have sworn they did.
Montreal.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, Montreal's 3-3. Man, I will say the Islanders are 2-4. They're looking rough, but other than that, the West is kind of struggling to get out of the gate.
No, I guess they didn't fire him. I thought someone already got fired. Am I imagining things?
I know that but like the fans in the stands are straight up calling for it when they played against Detroit.
They're burning jerseys in Vancouver. They're throwing jerseys on the ice, which again, I'll go on record time and time again. Don't burn a jersey. They don't care. Yeah, you spend money on that, and someday you're going to want to buy another jersey. That only helps them. I
must have had a dream that they fired him or something because I'm not seeing it anymore.
I wanted to make sure that of how crazy that would have been. They're on a 3-game win streak. They lost their first 2 games and then they've won 3. That would have been buck wild. And then to see Vancouver. But again, we're not here to talk about Vancouver and as terrible as they are. What we are here to talk about is how the Hawks aren't terrible enough. I mean, that is the issue, right? We traded DeBrincat, and I'm hyped about Korchinski. Now that the trade dust is settled, Korchinski is looking fantastic. He's got 12 points in 6 games for the Seattle Thunderbirds. Yeah, 1 goal, 11 assists in 6 games as their number 1 defenseman, logging 25 plus minutes a night. And that's thrilling. Like, that is legitimately our hope of the number 1 defenseman of the future. That said, you trade DeBrincat, you flip Kirby Dach for the future of Frank Nazar, who is injured right now. And really, I cannot wait for him to get back up and running because I want him to develop this year. But you don't make some of those moves without saying, okay, we know where we're at. We're selling the farm. DeBrincat's gone. Where you traded Hagel for those first round picks. Like, I get it. If you don't get a top 3 pick, then, I mean, it's awesome that we got Korchinski, but would you consider that plan a failure if you weren't bad enough? Because that is the plan.
I've been saying time and time again, I think people put way too much stock in the number 1 overall pick. There are years where you get the generational players like McDavid, like Crosby, like Ovechkin, like McKinnon. But there are also a lot of years where the player that goes first overall is not the best player from their draft.
Yeah.
I mean, look at, the Seider Zegras draft. Those guys are very questionably could have gone number 1 or number 2, depending on who you ask.
Yep.
Look at the Lafreniere draft.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with Alexis Lafreniere, but he might not have gone number 1 in a redraft.
The Nico Hischier draft.
Yeah, the Nico Hischier draft is another one.
That was the Cale Makar draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everyone's always like, we need number 1 overall. We need number 1 overall. Let's tank for number 1 overall. You can still find great players in the top 10.
It's a crapshoot. I say it all the time. Your scouting is everything. The amount of people that have found brilliant people in the 5th to 25th range, it's outrageous. Yeah, Zegras went 9th, and I mean, even Krebs, Cousins, there's so many good people that were in that draft.
I mean, and look at some of the star players Yzerman drafted when he was at Tampa.
Yep.
Look, who was it? Was it Cirelli? What was he? The 3rd round pick?
Yeah, Cirelli was a 3rd round pick.
Kucherov
was a middle of.
Yeah, he was a later round.
The 2nd.
Yeah.
You can find great players that aren't number 1, 2, or 3. I mean, Detroit found Dylan Larkin, a top line center, 16th overall.
And Reichel, if he continues to develop the way that, and again, some of that is you assume that a first overall pick can jump right into the NHL, which is also probably not the best thing for Alexis Lafreniere or Capo Caco or even Jack Hughes. They could have used another year before turning into studs. But yet, like, the amount of stock that you put into just the draft pick, to me, is saying, I don't trust our development teams. I don't trust what we do to grow a player. I need someone to come in. McDavid, even Draisaitl, it doesn't matter. They come in and it does not matter what your development team is like. They're going to thrive. Dylan Strome at third overall, or even Kirby Dach. If you don't have that development, they're not going to turn out the same way. Like, and that's outrageous to put on an 18-year-old kid.
But I mean, that's my thing, honestly. Like, I know like Chicago fans want to get the first overall because they're like, they think Connor Bedard is going to be, the next, superstar in this NHL league.
But
again, though, we've seen players who look great in juniors who, when they get to the NHL level, just doesn't translate.
I think I am a huge Lafreniere fan. I have a Lafreniere sweatshirt. Right now, he's a great player. He's not what you necessarily, if he was picked 5th overall, I think people would be thrilled with where he's at. But as a first overall pick, you have a certain expectation. I, for one, would be thrilled with Fantilli. I'm actually kind of hoping that we get Fantilli. I really like his style of play and think that it will translate even better to the NHL. I know that's blasphemy to say that Bedard might not be the perfect pick of all time. I really like that style of play that he brings.
But no, like, honestly, like, if I was in your guys' shoes, Tim, I wouldn't really fret it. Like, the thing is, as long as you have a good prospect group developing while you're waiting for those high-end picks to, land, those guys can win you a lot more games than one superstar can. It's going to sound crazy, but honestly, if someone told me I could trade one superstar center for like 2 top 6 wingers, a top pair, or a top pair, and I have a number one, just a top pair defenseman and a starting caliber goaltender instead, I would absolutely make that trade, because those players collectively will get you more than that superstar player will.
That said, man, you don't win without a Sidney Crosby.
But St. Louis did.
Yeah, because I guess you could argue Ryan O'Reilly was that, but like, he's an all-star, but he's not. Even Patrice Bergeron.
Vegas made it to the Stanley Cup Finals without one.
They were such a weird story, though. But you're absolutely right. You're giving me examples left and right. Like, I always point to Carolina. I think that they are a phenomenal chemistry team that has people up and down the lineup that are contributing. And like you said, it's about the prospect pool. I mean, Ethan Del Mastro, he's a captain for his OHL team this year. He's got 11 points in 7 games. Gavin Hayes, who was a 2022 third round pick, has 5 goals and 5 assists in 10. So he's 10 points in 10 games. Samuel Savoie, who I was gushing about in the preseason, he was a 2022 third round pick. He's got 4 points in 8 games, while also chipping in off, like, physically. Like, we've got guys gearing up. We've got guys ready. I think, just for me, trading DeBrincat signal, I would have even been okay with the trading of Kirby Dach. Give him that fresh start. We got back a really good, again, I love Frank Nazar, excited for him to get well. But trading DeBrincat, to me, was an all-in move on rebuilding, not retooling, because retooling implies, hey, this like early mid-20s 40 goal scorer, we're going to tool around him. We said we're not going to be competitive, and obviously plans change, but like, I don't know. I think that's the one thing that's going to burn for me, that I'm going to say, could we have done it? And again, that's not productive thinking, but like, it's going to be there in the back of your head.
I'm trying to think. DeBrincat, he's UFA after this year, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
he could come back. Well, no, wait, no, he's not. He's RFA. I'm sorry.
are you sure?
I'm talking out of my, I don't think he's.
I don't know,
You're
but
saying
Keep
anyway,
talking. I'll find that out.
but no, like really, I wouldn't be panicking right now. Like if anything, this is showing that you have a prospect group and like a group of players that are capable of keeping you in games. And Chicago hasn't really played like a definitive playoff team yet, I don't think, on their schedule. I'm trying to think because you guys played you played Seattle, you played us, you played oh no, you did play the
Vegas.
Avalanche, but I mean it's
Well,
the Colorado
'cause,
Avalanche.
I mean, basically, if we're doing sort of a flashback, basically, we opened the season with the Avalanche for their banner raising ceremony, and we lost 5-2, which, yeah, it's the Avalanche, and we were not ready. We can't compete against the Avalanche. That's where we're not good enough to make the playoffs. That said, the next night on October 13th, we played the Golden Knights, and we hung with them the entire game, and we lost 1-0. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for this year, is like, did we lose by not much? After that, Saturday, October 15th, we played the Sharks. We're down 2 goals and then rallied, and we beat them 5-2. That was the start of the weird like fall down and come back, because the Red Wings, we fell down 2 goals and roared back to a 4-3 overtime win. The Seattle Kraken yesterday, we were down 2 goals and rallied back to a 5-4 win. Like, that's where we're at right now. Obviously we can't hang with the like super like cup contending teams, but the Sharks, the Wings, and the Kraken, like, if I expected to be losing to them, it was a matter of how much. I did not expect to be beating them, and certainly not like 5-2 against the Sharks.
It just I get that. Again, I get that you guys want to have that next first overall superstar player.
That's the I'm just worried about the plan and the perception of the plan of, will like the fan base, which we are notoriously a pretty passionate and hot-headed fan base, will they start to say, oh, and we could have done this with DeBrincat, and we could have made the, like, oh, you had to get rid of DeBrincat too early. I worry about upper management above Davidson applying pressure, saying, we're closer than you think. What if we just try and do this like we did in the previous regime's time, where we would fluctuate every year? I hope he doesn't. At this point, you stick with it. You stick with the plan, because we can't keep going back and forth. That's my only worry.
Like, the only thing worse than not accepting a rebuild is accepting the rebuild and then trying to make a move too quick and setting that rebuild back even farther.
The only
Because, like, we saw it happen with Detroit. David and I fully saw that in Detroit.
Yep, we were putting band-aids on a sinking ship, and we kept trying to keep that playoff streak alive, and it wasn't working, and we just had to tear it all down, and we finally did.
And look at you now. That's the only team I've seen abandon the rebuild was the Rangers.
But again,
they signed Panarin. They won the Panarin sweepstakes. Shesterkin came out of the field, like, Lundqvist retired. Shesterkin rose to power. They also they got Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere in back-to-back drafts. Like,
Adam Fox came to him.
Yeah, Adam Fox is a hero. Keandre Miller is Trouba's a wrecking ball. I disagree with some of his play, but here we are. He's valuable.
Kreider turned it on.
Kreider's all of a sudden like a goal scorer. Like, cool. I mean, he's always been, but like not like that. a lot of things hit really, really right, but also a lot of it was their development path too. Keandre Miller was able to come up at the right time. Kreider's been there forever, and now he's he took that next step. We're not there with the Hawks.
But like that's the thing is like if you don't rush that process, and like New York, I don't think really rushed that process.
It just
stuff dropped right for them.
Yeah, again, you'll win lottery picks and get the second overall pick and then the first overall pick when you shouldn't have got not that you shouldn't have. You won the lottery. That escalates things, and that's also why. Hey, maybe if you tank and try to be the worst team, that doesn't guarantee you anything. Deliberately trying to be bad does not pay off. Ask a Red Wings fan.
Ask the Wings. Honestly, ask Edmonton for that matter. They can say the exact same thing.
Edmonton won. And
Buffalo is a pretty good example.
Toronto.
Yep, Toronto's a good one too. I mean, not Grand Toronto's a juggernaut offensively right now, but they're going to have serious problems in like 3 years.
And also, what do they have to show for it? That's my thing. I mean, they got the first overall with Matthews. They got Marner. They won the Tavares sweepstakes. What do they have? You've got McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton. What do you have? I would rather have a team like the Red Wings that's being built the right way and built for sustainability. That's the kicker. These top-heavy teams are gonna fall off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know, like I honestly like what Chicago's doing right now, and I like seeing that they're not trying to rush this rebuild, and the players are having success without pressure.
And
I think that should be the big takeaway, and everyone in Chicago should be happy about that.
I love it, and I'm excited about it. I'm already seeing the fan blogs and the Twitter and all that stuff where yeah.
What are they saying?
Just, did we jump, too quickly? Maybe we can get to bring it back from Ottawa. I'm seeing an outrageous post going on right now about Ottawa's cap strapped. We should try to get to brink it back. And I'm like, this is insanity. Like, move on. I love to brink it. Move on.
And that's why fans should not make decisions.
Yeah. We're not professional GMs. I'm not a scout. Like, exactly.
I mean, before we jump over to the Wings, Tim, do you have any more like things you want to touch on with the Hawks?
I guess the number one thing, like Pete Mrazek's injured again. He's on IR. He injured his groin, which is the injury he had last year. Like, man, as a goalie, that's it.
It's hard to come back from.
Yeah. And I know he completely changed his conditioning, his stretching regimen. Like, he did not want to get, not that anybody wants to get injured, but he knew the issue. He identified it. He worked hard at it. Man, was really hoping for something of a Mrazek redemption year, even if to flip him for some sort of mid-round pick. So it sucks to see. You just hope that he gets better. But that has opened the door for Stalock to be our number one goaltender. Have you guys watched him play?
I've watched a couple of the games that he was in. Yeah, he hasn't looked bad.
He's so aggressive. He's flying out of the crease. He's playing the puck. He's jumping all over the place. He's a maniac.
The Dominic Hasek method.
Yeah. He's like Dominic Hasek, after he slams a Red Bull. Listen, he's doing well. We're winning games. So I can't complain. But the guy gives me a heart attack every time he's on the ice. We did bring Arvid Soderblom up from Rockford, which is exciting. I mean, I'd rather he's getting big minutes in Rockford, but he getting the backup time and being with the big club is exciting and is valuable for his development. So I'm stoked about that. Other than that, I sort of gave my prospect update in the middle of just talking about everything. But other than that, yeah, it's exciting to see Taze. We've talked about this a couple times in the chat. He's not looking like Dynasty Taze by any means, but he looks good, right? He looks
good enough to be a second line center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him look comfortable. And even in the preseason, we were saying like, man, he doesn't look like he's going for, like, he's not 100% in. Once the season started, he looks fantastic. Like, he looks fantastic for Tays at this point in his career, especially after being off for a year and like having to come back last year. It's exciting. It's really, really exciting to see him just play. Kane, of course, I don't think he has a goal yet, but he's got a ton of assists. Other than that, the biggest takeaway for me is that this is Luke Richardson's team. This team was never Jeremy Colleton's team. And it wasn't even really Derek King's team. It was Derek King, like, keeping the team alive. And again, he's an assistant coach. So like, he has a hand in like helping create this culture in this environment. I am excited for any time right now we're watching competitive hockey and we're seeing these guys not quit and we're seeing them enjoy the game. That's who wins games and that's who develops, are people that are enjoying and like excited to come to work every day. There's a lot to be said about fighting burn. We talk about it all the time in the corporate world, combating burnout. We don't talk about that enough in sports. If you're in an environment where you want to wake up and you're like, listen, I'm ready, I'm gonna get to work, we're gonna do this. If the environment is productive, it's positive, it's a conducive work environment, that's going to raise everybody's game. And that's really exciting to see after all of the horribleness and unpleasantness of last year.
Like, that's actually I think that's actually like the Blackhawks motto this year is ready to work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's what the team's doing, is like the team's doing the work to slowly get better.
100%. And that's exactly what it's everyone showing up and giving their best, giving their all that night. It's really cool to see. I also don't like our retro jersey.
We'll get into those later.
So that's it. Yeah, because we basically have our retro jerseys are family, basically. But yeah, that's the Hawks news for me.
We're family.
It's all about family.
Family.
But yeah, I want to hear about the Red Wings because there's a lot going on over there. I want to hear about that Raymond giveaway in overtime.
So I kind of want to just start. Anybody who is following or who hasn't been following the Detroit Red Wings, they haven't lost in regulation yet this season. And they're 5 or 6 games in so far? They've taken every single game minus 2 of them in regulation wins. The 2 losses they do have are both overtime losses. One of them is to the LA Kings, the team that made the playoffs last year. And the other one is to the Chicago Blackhawks. And I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but
yep.
I think just to touch on it again, I think like that game, and no shade to the Blackhawks, but I think Detroit did take their foot off the gas that game when they shouldn't have.
We should, yeah.
No,
to put the 2 losses in perspective with the 2 overtime losses, the first one with the Kings, we stole a point in that.
Yeah, that is a steal point.
Where Larkin made a game-saving stop that led to a goal, and with the Chicago game, we gave away a point.
Mm-hmm. And like, that was the thing that Lalonde kind of like hit on. He's like, and I actually agree with him. The Chicago game, the Wings, I think, gave the point away, but the Kings game, they stole a point, which they didn't deserve from LA. But all the other games that they've had this season, they've looked like they deserve to win those games, minus the New Jersey one. That one, goaltending for New Jersey just didn't show up for some reason. But that happens in the NHL.
I mean, that could happen any game to any team. And we've seen it.
I mean, Montreal was a complete just thrashing by the Wings. What they have 25 shots in the first period. Like,
it was ugly. It was really ugly.
Anaheim, they just completely overpowered that group. Like, when Detroit killed that almost 2 minutes of 5-on-3, and Anaheim had, I think, 1 actual dangerous chance. Once that kill happened, Detroit just turned it on.
It was momentum shift big time. My boy Joe Valeno getting that sweet goal.
I do love to see it. I love seeing Joe Valeno making the most of his time.
Out of all the goals we scored, that was the only one I actually saw happen. Because, like I said, when I was watching my friends last night, every time I turned away to say something, we turned back and there was a goal scored.
I mean, but overall, this Wings team has been really good, especially like I know they've only played majority quote unquote bottom feeders so far this season, minus LA. But that being said, they have looked good against all the teams that they should have looked good against. And they looked like they could hang with the playoff teams. Like they didn't dominate the playoff teams, but they looked like they could at least hang in those games. And that's a huge step forward for this club.
Of course. Yeah. And we have a big test this week with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
So who is it? They play, I'm trying to think, it's Boston this week too, right?
Let me look.
But either way,
Tomorrow
like
we
they
play
have
the Devils. Thursday we play the Bruins. Saturday we play the Wild.
But so like the Wings, I think are going
we
to
don't play
actually
Tampa.
finally have their real test coming up this week. And again, we'll talk about that later in the flash forward. But overall, I've really liked what we've seen from them this season already.
Of course. I mean, we lost Bertuzzi, unfortunately, to an injury.
That sucks.
But the other guys are fighting for that spot. Kubalik is showing that he should be possibly getting first line minutes. Zadina's getting some work in, which is good. Soderblom's getting some good work in. Michael Rasmussen, like, if one guy goes down, we have a lot of guys fighting to take that spot.
Which is good because it's happened. You've lost a couple of guys that were key players or expected to be key players, and you've been able to just slot up the lineup and people just enter in. Like, that's the sign of a really well-built team. How do you feel about Seider this year?
He looks good so far. Like, he's not standing out like he was at the beginning of last year, but I think he's got a good pairing with Ben Sherratt, who
I agree.
it's scary because they're both aggressive players. And like, I was thinking like, oh, Seider's going to be just wrecking people, hitting people. And it's more Sherratt. Like, players are avoiding Seider too. Like, Seider leveled somebody last night and the Ducks were just like, yeah, we're not
The Ducks
near
can't.
you.
The Ducks can't handle that smoke right now.
Nah, they're like, we're not going to mess with you. No, thank you. We don't want any of that. I still stand by Seider's going to put up some great numbers this year and be a finalist. And I think in my bold hot take was that he wins the Calder, not the Calder, the Norris.
You said Norris, right? Yeah.
Norris, yeah. So I'm like, big hot take. He wins the Norris.
I mean, he's definitely in a better position. Well, it's funny. He's in a way better position than last year playing with Sherratt. I honestly don't know how to pronounce the name. My apologies. But compared to the people he was paired with last year, like, that's a competent and very like stable defenseman. That's a really good veteran presence to pair with a young guy like Seider.
And like, I think one thing is like, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at Seider and they're like, where's the production at this season so far? Because we're like 5 or 6 games in and he hasn't had just crazy great numbers. I think fans also need to remember teams are gunning for him now. Like, people took notice this offseason. Same thing with Lucas Raymond. Teams aren't sleeping on those guys anymore.
He's also a defenseman. Like, I know the league is all about points and the Norris Trophy is even all about points, but like, there is so much more to his game than points. And that's the nights when he's not on the score sheet. What has he been doing all game? That's the stuff that I look for with a defenseman, especially. And it's like, okay, he's still making space. He's still, blocking shots or, disrupting play. Like, seeing that overall well-rounded game that he's able to fall back on, that's going to keep him in this league for a long time. And that's where some of these offensive defensemen that never had to focus too much on defense, when the offense dries up, Eric Gustafsson was an awesome offensive defenseman. He did not have the defense to fall back on when offense dried up, and he becomes a liability. Seider has not been a liability.
No.
Like, honestly, I think one of the players that's really surprised me the most is Elmer Soderblom. I mean, he had the first goal of the season in the home opener. He had what did he have one? He had another one, I think last night
He
versus the
scored last
Ducks.
night. Yeah.
Even like you put the goals aside, he still looked really good, and like he is using his size to his full advantage to keep puck possession.
I love that.
It's not just his size too; it's his stick handling. I forget which game it was, but he like flicked the puck over somebody and like glided past them. And I can't
You're
remember.
talking about the Montreal's game where like he had like that awesome shift where he deked out 3 people on the boards.
It's so stupid.
It was ridiculous. He's 6'8". He's a gosh darn California redwood tree, and he's moving around like a leaf in the breeze.
That's real. What is it? Your third line is like the biggest line in the league.
Yeah, like
in
I
like
think
league history.
Did Mickey Redmond call them the threesome? And I'm like, oh God, Mickey, no.
That's hilarious. Mickey, yes.
But I think they actually are. I think they're like the
Yeah.
biggest average line ever in the NHL.
Because they're
Yeah.
all like 6'4" plus and like 200 plus. Like they're
I think they're like
terrifying.
19. They're like 19 something feet tall combined.
They'll eat Cole Caulfield.
No, I need Cole Caulfield. No.
But honestly, like I have really been impressed with the Wings like newer acquisitions this season. We talked about it a little bit earlier. David Perron has been absolutely awesome on the power play for Detroit. Kubalik has been better than advertised. I think he's got 8 points in 5 games, which he's not going to keep that pace up. No player in the NHL really does, but
Watch him.
if he's even a 15 goal scorer this year, which he's already got 3, if he's just a perennial 15 goal scorer for $2 million, that's a great signing by Steve Yzerman.
Oh God, yeah.
It's like, it's just great to see these players that Yzerman's brought in the last year and a half contributing as much as they are. Because Jordan, look back at like the Ken Holland end of his tenure days. You know, Stephen Weiss didn't really contribute much. Like there's the names escape me because they never really stood out as much. What's his name? Damian Brunner. Like he had a shootout goal that was pretty sweet, but he didn't do much. It was just like people weren't contributing. And then you got Yzerman, who, yes, Perlini was one of the few that really didn't pan out, but like Robbie Fabry is a firecracker. Every player he signed this offseason, including, you know, trading for Ville Husso, like it's been remarkable, like how much they contribute. Like Ali Mata, I had no expectations of Ali Mata. I was like, okay, great. He's just a filler piece, but he's a top 4 defenseman for us right now. He contributes like immensely.
He was the assist on on the Kubalik goal against the Hawks. And even the Perlini trade, you can see the thought process and you can see who Yzerman figured he had in the pipeline with getting rid of Regula. Like that's a high risk, high reward that like, I get it. It wasn't a bad trade. Perlini just couldn't put it together. He's looked great with the Wolves this year, but he just, if he could have taken that step, he would have been a great little complementary piece with the Wings.
Like, to put it in perspective, Ali Mata right now, last year with the Kings, he played 66 games. He had 8 points, 1 goal, 7 assists. In 5 games with Detroit, 1 goal, 4 assists.
Wow.
The
Holy cow. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm okay. David,
Like,
okay.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
Okay, David. David, okay. No, that's beyond remarkable.
Scrap. Yeah. Let's see, like, if I can look more at the stats.
While you're looking, yeah.
I mean, one thing that I'm kind of just waiting for is like, I'm waiting to see how long it's going to take for, what's his name? Andrew Kopp, like that Andrew Kopp, Philip Zadina line or combination to really start popping off. Cause I was looking at like some of their underlying, like offensive metric numbers. That line that they play on has had really good expected goal for percentages. Like, I don't know why they haven't scored yet.
Mhm.
Yeah. They're doing all the right things, like you said. Like, it's great.
I'm trying to find
Although you
his
do the right
minutes.
things, and it's gonna pay off. And while David's looking for that, I did want to confirm DeBrincat is going to be RFA at the end of the 22-23 season. He'll be 25 years old over a career that spans 6 seasons with at least one NHL game played. Feels like he should be a UFA, but he still hasn't been in the
crazy.
league that long.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So he'll be an RFA. So Ottawa controls him, but he doesn't want to sign long term. If he'll do a 1-year deal, maybe they flip rights. I don't know.
I mean, if I was in his position, I'd probably just do a 1-year deal and then get to go wherever I want.
Oh, 100%. You name your price and you go where you want to go. He'll play in the New York Rangers with Panarin and Kane.
Or Detroit.
David, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. What do you think of Detroit's goaltending so far? Because Ville Husso's had 2 great appearances already. Nedeljkovic, I think he's looked good. There have been some saves that I thought he should have had back, but there have also been a couple that he's gotten burned on, not because his play's been bad, but the play in front of him was bad.
I think they're a great tandem. I think they're similar to what we had with Bernier and who did we have with Bernier?
He was with
besides
Thomas
Ned?
Greiss.
Greiss. The 1A, 1B situation where they both look really well. I think Ville Husso has the slight edge, though. I think he's had the better productivity and better games than Ned.
And I did think that his little sticker on his pad was pretty funny the other night.
Oh, I
he had
love
the
that.
"Hey Mom" message on it or whatever.
No, that was super cool.
Was that to his mom or was that to the future mom? Because they just announced today that they're having a baby.
That's right. Congrats. That's super exciting. It's to a mom, certainly.
Yes.
And it's great. But I agree with you. I think Ville Husso has been your number 1 goalie this year so far.
The thing is Nedeljkovic, like I said, he hasn't looked bad. He seems like a really, really good backup. Not that he can't play a starter if something were to happen to Husso, but I think Husso has been the better goaltender. And you could say, well, Husso got the start against a Canadiens team that's really weak, and he got a start against the Ducks team that is really weak, and so it's kind of artificially inflated his numbers a little bit. But even so, there have been some great chances that Husso has stopped, that Nedeljkovic has stopped, and I think that's probably why I would give Husso the edge right now over Nedeljkovic.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to touch on. I want to actually shout out one more thing before we move on to the flash forward. Derek Lalonde's systems with this Detroit team look so much more improved over what we saw with Jeff Blashill. The PK is a lot more aggressive, which is forcing more turnovers. And is it going to eventually burn them? Yeah, it's going to burn them eventually. But right now, it looks super good. They're perfect on the penalty kill right now, which 5 games in is pretty good. And the power play has looked so much better as well. The puck movement seems better. It seems like players are in better positioning. And again, does Derek Lalonde have better players to work with on the power play overall? Yes.
I mean, our boy Kubalik's on the first power play line.
It's where he should be. And for some reason, we didn't put him there for a lot of the Hawks tenure. That's his slot. That's going to be really good for him.
But overall, I have really liked what the Wings are doing with their special teams this season. Like I said, I know the penalty kill will not stay perfect forever. That's a given. But if they can even be a 15-ish or even in the 20-ish range, and their power play can step it up to be, again, somewhere in the middle between the 12 to 20 range somewhere. Special teams can carry you through a lot of games.
Yes, they can.
Oh, yep.
And the fact that we survived a 5-on-3 for as long as we did against the Ducks last night really shows the change.
But yeah, I felt like Derek Long, like him and his staff have deserved a shout out for that because they have greatly changed the systems for both of those units and they look a lot better. I wish they would take Hronek off power play 1, but I'm not going to fight it because it's still working right now. So
Yeah.
Maybe Derek Lalune can bring back the offensive threat that Hronek was.
Yeah. Sometimes I think I'm misremembering. He was a like legit offensive defenseman.
Yeah, he was putting up near half point per game.
A few seasons ago, he was just like a half point a game about.
I knew he fell off last year, but I figured that was just because of his the rest of the defensive core in Detroit.
That is also it, but I think that took a toll on him too. Let me see, Philip.
Because the year you guys were notoriously bad and he was really like a shining spot, he was playing stupid minutes.
Yeah, he was playing like 20 some minutes a game.
He has 0 goals and 4 assists currently. But let's see. Yeah, last year he was 5-33. The year before 2-24, 9-22, 5-18. Like he can get the points.
Say like I like him like as an offensive option. Is he good? Yes. I just wish they would play him on the second power play unit and let Sider get more of that time on power play 1 to start building more, because eventually he's going to have to be expected to be power play 1 quarterback. It's just, if you look at the wing system, he's going to have to be that player eventually, unless they let Simon Edvinsson do it in 2 years, assuming he becomes an NHL regular.
I think he will.
But yeah, I wanted to shout out the special teams because, again, great job by the coaching staff. A lot of times teams and their fan bases, they don't give credit to where it's due in those departments. And I think that credit is fully due right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and move on to the flash forward, because I think it's going to be an interesting, next week or 2 weeks for the Wings and the Hawks coming up. There's going to be a real test, I think, at least for the Wings coming up this next week.
Yep. Every day is a test for the Hawks.
So I'm looking at the upcoming schedule for the Wings. The Wings play the New Jersey Devils. They play the Boston Bruins, which I think is going to be like their first true test of, a calibers that's on par with, probably being a bubble team this year for the playoffs, as well as the Minnesota Wild. And then weirdly enough, the Buffalo Sabres, who haven't looked abysmal this year.
4-1
on Halloween.
I can't talk about Buffalo right now. They're 4-1.
I mean, you can still talk about them.
I mean, yeah, listen, we'll save that.
I mean, David, just looking at, this next 4-game stretch that we've got coming up, what are your initial thoughts?
All right. So I think tomorrow we beat the Devils. I think it wasn't a fluke that we beat them the first time. I think we continue that stride. I think, however, the Bruins did give us our first regulation loss. That team looks, like they always do, very, very good.
Yeah.
Just to spite my friend Jake, I think we beat the Wild. They have not looked good. They're not looking great. And I think we beat Buffalo in overtime. I don't want to lose to Buffalo.
No. I actually think they're going to lose against the Devils tomorrow. I think Jack Hughes, Heischer, and friends are going to want revenge after the way that we kind of stole that game from them just because their goaltending didn't show up. I think the Boston Bruins game is our first real test in terms of how do they look against a team that is a perennial playoff team every year? Like you said, they still have so many of the great players, Bergeron, Pasternak. I think
they're
they still
aging,
have Charlie.
But they still got it.
Yeah.
They still have most of those players. I think they might actually beat Boston in overtime. I think that they might actually dig in and try to have this be a prove it game for them. I think
Okay, Jordan. Okay.
I think the Wild are finally due for a win at that point. I think they're going to rally against Detroit finally. And then I think the Sabres, Detroit is perfectly capable of winning that game. I just think overall on paper, Detroit is better than that Sabres club. I think they're going to start trying to get hot again.
I don't know if you guys have the Maple Leafs Vegas game on, but that center ice logo for Vegas is tight.
There's a lot of things that look great about Vegas. It makes me mad.
Phil Kessel will break the Ironman record tomorrow if he starts against San Jose.
Feel the thrill, baby. He's earned it.
But yeah, I think looking at this coming week, like the Wings are going to get their first real test, and the Bruins and probably the Devils. I don't know. I'm excited to see how they look against I hate saying true playoff team, but against a team that most fans and people around the NHL look at and say, yeah, it's probably a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I don't think that's
I'd be shocked if Buffalo missed the playoffs.
I mean, weird things have happened, though. I mean, sometimes it does happen where you start super hot and then you just fall off a cliff, but other times you're supposed to be terrible again and you look great. So
yeah,
I think this is going to be a fun week for Wings fans. I mean, like I said, you're going to get a real idea, excuse me, of how this team is going to look against perennial playoff teams or teams that should be in the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tim, you look at our schedule. What do you think?
I think you beat New Jersey. I'm all for Heischer and Hughes showing up. Jesper Bratt's phenomenal. I just don't trust their defense and their goaltending. I think that when push comes to shove, you can match their offense and you can break through their defenses. I don't know if you beat Buffalo. I don't feel as good about Buffalo or Boston, just because Buffalo's clipping right now, and they've done this before early in the season. So realistically, there was a precedent for good early season Buffalo hockey, and then by Thanksgiving it falls apart. So you're catching them at the wrong time right now. That's your issue.
There's the crap talking to Buffalo. We all know.
I had to get something in there. It was killing me. And Boston, I think it depends on which goalie you get. I think if it's Allmark, I don't think you win. Swayman's been shaky. I like Swayman, but I think that he's let in one or two softies. I think if you can capitalize on that, it's not out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tim, go ahead and walk me through the Hawks' upcoming week this week.
It's gonna be a ride, Hawks fans. It doesn't look great. Tomorrow we've got the Florida Panthers, and I don't see us beating the Florida Panthers realistically. Thursday we're playing Edmonton. We've shut down McDavid before, but you can
shut him down. Just let me get Draisaitl some points.
We've got the Florida Panthers tomorrow. Thursday we have the Oilers. Saturday we have the Sabres, and Sunday we have the Wild. I think, and I'm going to rapid fire these. I'm going with my gut. I'm not overthinking it. We're going to lose to the Panthers. We're going to beat the Oilers in overtime. We're going to lose to the Sabres. We're going to beat the Wild in regulation. I thought the Wild were a good team. I think that there's something wrong in the room right now. I think that they've got to write something there. And if we can capitalize on that while they're still kind of disjointed, I think we can still beat them. Sabres, They're really good right now, right? Like, I'm not crazy. They're 4-1. Like, Tage Thompson's, looking like he deserves that contract. Dylan Cozens is taking that step forward. Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power are great.
Tage Thompson can do a bit more for me,
That's fair. I mean, that's not, at that contract and what you're expected to be, like, you should raise your level a little bit more. But he hasn't been bad by any means. He's been consistent. Yeah, for a team that lost a lot of people and like was notoriously a place that hockey went to die, they're they're hanging on this year. They're looking good. So I hope we can destroy that. I would love to shatter that hope, but I myself don't have that hope in the Hawks right now.
Uh, it's crazy. Buffalo was 4-1 right now.
Yeah. Because what is their goalie still Craig Anderson? Because Ukko-Pekka went back to the AHL. I think he's with the Rochester team. Because again, you know me, I put a lot of stock in who your goalie is. They are rocking Eric Comrie and Craig Anderson. That's not good. I mean, Craig Anderson was a good goalie, but he's also like 42.
Why is Comrie's name familiar?
He was on Colorado at one point. He's been all over the league. He's one of those goalies that gets like picked up on waivers. But yeah, I mean, their defense is Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, yeah. I forgot they had Peyton Krebs on their team. That's right. They got him in the Jack Eichel.
And they got Alex Tuck too.
Yep.
Alex
I mean,
Tuck.
Alex Tuck is their right wing one. Victor Olofsson, who was in the race for the Calder, was that last year or the year before? One of the two. Jeff Skinner is actually being played like a human being now, so he's the left wing one.
Yeah, Jeff Skinner in my card pack
I mean,
team.
as a guy making $9 million a year, you play him in your top six. That was stupid. Vinny Hinostroza is still on it. Like it on paper, it's not a bad team. I just always expect Buffalo to fall apart because that's what they do best.
Yep.
Yeah, they're a good team right now.
Watch them just win it all this year just to spite you.
You know what? I hope they do. I hope that Jack Eichel leaves and they go and win. Not because I don't like Eichel, but because I love stories like that.
Stop winning. I'm just gonna win even harder right now.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to go a place where I can win and then see him take off. Like that's always a treat. I mean, that's what happened to Matt Duchene too. So like, I don't know. It's fun for me. Nothing against the players. I like those storylines.
Oh yeah, the storylines are 100% awesome to watch happen. It's like the whole, oh, you don't want me anymore? Okay.
It's so good. It's the same as like when the team, there's a guy that like really wants to sign with their team. I'm ready for an extension and they pass on him. And then he goes somewhere else and like thrives. Like I love that storyline just as much, if not more.
Yeah.
I just like the ones where somebody scorns or gets scorned and then the side thrives. It's fun. It's good television.
I mean, like I'm looking at your guys this week.
Yeah, what do you think? Man, this could really go either way, right?
I feel like the Panthers and the Oilers are going to bring the Hawks back down to earth. If I'm being honest.
No, it's not. I mean, we know what this team is. Right now, they're defying expectations. I don't want them to keep doing that.
The Sabres, like they're strong, but I don't think they're strong enough to the point where like they're going to dominate the Hawks. I think the Hawks actually have a chance in that game. And the Minnesota Wild, like I don't know what it is, but something is not clicking with that group.
Yeah. They've got so many good pieces and so many like consistent pieces, and they haven't had too much turnover. Something's just not right there right now. And I don't know what that is. I think their coach should be on the hot seat because you just don't have all those different like pieces that worked together. Now suddenly not. I don't know. So something's weird there, right?
I mean, I really think that the Sabres and the Wild game are both winnable games for Chicago. I fully expect a loss from the Panthers and the Oilers. Just those two teams are so good still. But I don't know. I think a 2-2 split's very realistic this week for the Hawks.
I'll take a 2-2 split. I mean, that'd be a huge week for us in my mind.
That's week for the Hawks and the Wings so far. I'm trying to think if there's anything major around the league news wise. There haven't been any trades yet, or any major trades yet.
Right.
I mean,
League's been pretty quiet for the most part.
yeah, I mean, like it's 2 weeks in. There's not really anything huge for the league going on right now. We didn't really do it like when we were doing the flashback segment, but Tim, who was like, in your opinion, the star of like the past 2 weeks for the Hawks?
It's got to be Sam Lafferty, right? Like I know he's not a star of the team, but like he has been the focal point. He's around involving most of our goals. He's driving our power kill. He's making space all over the ice. He's disrupting play. He's scoring goals. He's getting assists. Obviously, it's not going to stay that way. Like it just where he's at. He's a top 9 guy. He's great, but like right now, he's pounding is the heart and soul of the team. I gotta give it to Lafferty.
Okay.
What
David,
about you guys? Yeah,
David, who's star of the week for the Wings for you?
Oh, that's tough. I don't. There's like so many options to choose from for the last 2 weeks. I think I'm gonna have to go with David Perrin.
David Perrin, okay. Power play goaler.
I think he is finding his groove. I think our power play was clicking with him at it. My other choice would have been, former Blackhawk Dominic Kubalik finding his groove in these last few games as well.
I mean, Kubalik's who I'm choosing. I mean, he's just offensively been fantastic, and he's worked his way onto that line with Dylan Larkin, and he looks like a great option there with him.
Yeah, I almost said Kubalik, but I decided to go like Kubalik. It's basically a tie between him and David Perrin for me.
And then honorable mention to Ville Husso, like Montreal, the shoot or the what they call it, the shutout, and then the fantastic appearance versus Anaheim last night. So honorable mention for Ville Husso.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be it for our show, unless you guys have anything else you guys want to talk about.
I feel good.
Okay, we can close out then. If you're still listening to the show or watching the show, we really want to appreciate you guys for doing that. At the end of the day, this is a podcast. It's by fans for fans. There's no corporate sponsorship or anything like that. So you guys tuning into the show and giving us a check out is always awesome. If you liked what you heard or watched, feel free to follow us on all the socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube, Apple Podcast. We're just all over the social spheres. So feel free to check us out. Give us whatever the social media currency is on the platform. We always appreciate it. And also feel free to give us any sort of like fan feedback, questions, comments, critiques, stuff like that. Because that's how the show gets better at the end of the day, is by you guys telling us, hey, these parts we liked, these parts we didn't. That's how the show gets better. So feel free to drop that as well. But again, thank you for tuning into the show. For your host, Jordan Linscott, and for my co-hosts, Tim Stompanato and David Barnhouse, this has been another edition of the Stick Play Podcast. We'll check you guys back all here next week. Take care.